and welcome to Commissioner's Corner. I'm Commissioner Charlotte Garrido, and we have a special program today to talk to folks who have lived a homeless experience, and they're going to tell us about that. We have Robin O'Grady from the Kitsap Rescue Mission. We have Cody and Gina. So let's get right to the discussion, shall we? Gina and Cody, could you tell us a little bit about yourselves, some of the challenges that led to your being unhoused, and for how long you were outside?
Sure. Do you want to go first, Cody?
Sure, I'd love to. So I've had some mental health issues that began while I was a child, and with ADHD, it was hard to focus and stay moving toward my goals. So I've had a lot of jobs and been trying all this time to keep an income coming in. And recently, I started to talk to my doctor more and get medicated. But it was mental health related, is what I just couldn't fit in as well with my coworkers to work the whole time.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And Gina?
So similar to Cody, I had some mental health issues. I was self-medicating with marijuana or alcohol, and I wasn't able to keep a job. So I wasn't able to pay the rent, and I would have to stay with people that it wasn't the best place for me to stay.
Could you tell us some of the challenges that led to being unhoused and the hardest part of living outside?
Yeah, I first went to Seattle, and this was just a few months ago, and I had difficulties there with the meetings, so I had to have a caseworker because they're going to have the case manager will have the ins to where the shelters are and how to get your referrals, and to just tell you how the shelter's life's going to be so you can get into the shelter and you know what your meal times are. Well, I had stayed at a friend's house and I didn't meet with my case manager that day, and I didn't get to move into my shelter that day. So I had to sleep out on the sidewalk of Seattle. I did it by the 7-Eleven there, and because I thought it would be safe if it was right in the middle of everyone. So I slept on the sidewalk. That was when I really realized that I'm probably having the toughest time of my life right now, and it really just sunk in that I need to start asking for help from the community.
So what was the turning point for each of you to look for shelter?
Well, I didn't realize the options, what the resources were. I didn't know about Housing Solutions Center. I just knew there was a Salvation Army to go to, and I really didn't want to stay with like 80 other people on a floor on the So, but when I finally found out what the resources were, and I stayed at a women's shelter, it was a simple thing like having a pillow again, or having somewhere to put my clothes, having a place that I can cook food or take a shower. It was something that simple that made me realize, like, okay, it's time to get into services. I went into recovery. I started connecting with mental health services, and my life turned around really quickly after that. I ended up being hired for the shelter that I worked at. Within 2 months, I was assistant manager. I became an intern at the rescue mission with case management. And as soon as I decided that that's what it took, my life just turned around from that.
That's marvelous, but that comment about having a pillow again really struck a
Right?
chord for me.
Yeah. Something so simple, just of having my own pillow.
Yeah.
My family had offered to let me stay with them, but the shelter really has the people that are trained to help people that are pretty much have nothing. Yeah, it's nice to be around people that know what they're doing, because that's how I can get help. Because family and friends can do a lot, but the shelter is, they're experts at getting us back on our feet. I feel like I feel great when I'm around shelter staff.
Thank you. Well, I have some more questions for you, but I'd like to know a little bit about how Robin feels about some of this comments that you're making here. I mean, they're really supportive of this shelter.
Yeah, it warms my heart and just really gives me the hope that we're moving in the right direction. It's really great to be able to step in at a time when people really, really need extra support, need our help, and to be able to come in and walk alongside them and provide them with the supportive services is so important. And it's great to watch the changes as they occur. And we see many successes at the Kitsap Rescue Mission, and it's just yeah, it's important work, and it's always great to see people succeed.
So, how does the mission staff work with individuals to help them find stable housing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, our folks are coming in from the Housing Solutions Center, and they are being assessed via a vulnerability tool that identifies them as the highest need level before they come into the rescue mission. Our case managers triage upon entry into shelter and do a housing stability planning with each guest coming in. The housing stability plan is really important because it identifies housing and employment goals and also other goals that our guests may have. And our stability plans are individualized, which is really important because I think we know that cookie cutter services no longer work well for people. And so we're able to come in using trauma informed care, progressive engagement, and some of the other evidence-based models of service provision that are working well with folks who have significant trauma and have had lengths of time unhoused. Yeah, we also lean heavily on our community partners who are coming in to provide services. So we have Kitsap WorkSource coming in. We have the Peninsula Community Health Services mobile medical and dental vans coming in. We are working with the Heart team and the Real teams. Am I forgetting anyone,
We have
Gina?
substance use disorder professional.
We have a
on
full-time
site.
substance use disorder professional who's actually integrated into our team recently, and this has been such an important addition to our team because the substance use counselor can actually help us do interventions in real time and can help people kind of help funnel people into detox, inpatient and outpatient treatment. He can do assessments on site, and we're looking forward to also having soon a mental health professional integrated into our team. Our folks are oftentimes people who aren't willing necessarily to access some of the other community supports out there around mental health and substance use. So to have those services on site have been really important and useful to our shelter guests.
It sounds like the world opened up a little for you when you entered the shelter. Is that correct?
Definitely for me.
How did the shelter help with your stability?
Well, I participated in a WAVE program as a work apprentice volunteer, and that helped me transition into a volunteer position and then an internship at the Kitsap Rescue Mission. Taught me budgeting. There's, many different things that I learned through that program, but it was also being accountable and showing up, getting back into the workforce.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I work with workforce development. I'm very interested in the pathways to careers and what interests individuals who are in need of employment. I guess one of the questions I have is, what do you want people to know about homelessness and people who are experiencing it? I know that there's a certain amount of mystery
Stigma.
about it for people who haven't experienced it.
Mhm.
And yet you have, and what would you like us to know about it, and how could we be helpful?
I'd like to say that if the programs are there, um, which means it might take ongoing um, planning and funding every year. As long as they're there, we have somewhere to go and get the help we need, find an income, and get back on our feet. Um, when I started to have um, issues with housing, it was I was becoming depressed and with mental health and having to work. Um, this shelter really helps. I mean, it's pretty much the only thing that we can do. So we need to make sure. So I hope that we keep having the shelter. There's literally nowhere else we could go except for just stand around outside.
Well, let me just jump that now to the future. What are
Thank you.
each of your plans for the future?
I'm getting a job. I'm getting full-time work, and I'm gonna have a one-bedroom apartment.
And
Um,
that's underway?
yeah, that's
Wow.
working with the doctor and my caseworker, who is Gina. Um, we're gonna find a way for me to have everything I want in life, which is, yeah, roof over my head, a job, relationships.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Well, if I can back
Gina,
up,
please do.
I just want to say that anyone can experience homelessness. So many people are very close, they're just a payment away from it, or they lose a job, or some sort of medical problem happens, and they could experience homelessness as well. So there's a stigma that it's only, addiction and mental health, but it's so many people are very close to it. And as far as I've been working at the rescue mission for about 5 years now, and I just continue, or I plan on staying there for now. I haven't really made any future plans on where to go. It's just, I'm looking forward to seeing, we've grown so much since I first started there, and I'm just looking forward to continuing and seeing the growth.
We're
And
glad you're there.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Well, Robin, why don't you tell us a little bit more about where other information might be found?
Sure. So if you want to learn more information about the Kitsap Rescue Mission, you can go to our website at www.kitsaprescue.org.
So appreciate you, Gina and Cody, for sharing your thoughts with us today. Thank you for joining us, and best wishes to each of you. I look forward to crossing paths with you often.
Thank you.
I've been joined by Kirsten Jewell, Kitsap County's Housing and Homeless Coordinator. I'd like to have a great conversation with you, Kirsten, about some of the work that you're doing. We have a shelter program now for a new building, and I wonder if you'd tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. It's a very exciting project for our division. Really, the first time we've forayed into something like this. We recognize across the county that there's just not enough shelter beds, and we particularly don't have any in the south part of the county or the north part of the county. So this is part of our larger strategic plan to expand shelter beds. The county's purchased the old Olympic Fitness building, which many people are familiar with, which is on Mile Hill Drive, and is in the process of converting that into being a 75-bed shelter. We anticipate contracting with the Kitsap Rescue Mission to operate that shelter once it's open. And it's just going to be a tremendously valuable resource for people who are struggling with housing in the south part of our county.
So that we're going to call that the Pacific Building?
Yes, the Pacific Building, as opposed to the Olympic Fitness Center. So we are calling it the Pacific Building Shelter Project.
Great.
Yeah.
And how does the staff promote the move to stable housing for
So the
folks?
Kitsap Rescue Mission will be contracted by Kitsap County, and one of the things that the mission staff will do is help each of the people in the shelter program develop a housing stability plan, which includes their sort of resources that they have available to them, their goals, their opportunities, and some of the challenges that they have. And then those case managers work closely with them to help them work towards meeting those goals. One of the great things about this building is that it has the space in it to have some offices where they can have WorkSource come in and help people work with employment resources and try to get some job training or resume assistance. It has the opportunity for them to bring in the Peninsula Community Health medical and dental van out in front. So that will be coming there periodically to provide those medical services. There's offices available for mental health and substance use treatment, as well as the case managers at the rescue mission. So the building itself really is well suited to have a variety of different outside partners come in and bring those resources to the people who are in the shelter at that time.
It actually sounds ideal. I know that it is a big building, having been a gym in the past, but lots of different spaces for different activities so that people can really focus in on where each individual need is.
Absolutely. We looked for a long time for a building that would be suitable for this purpose. We went and toured quite a few buildings throughout the county, and when this one came along, it just seemed ideal. It's in a great location. It's on a big piece of property with a big backyard. It's close to bus lines. It's close to services. It has a lot of space in it, and we have to do fairly minimal remodeling inside. We've got to add some more showers and toilets and things like that, a few more offices. We're adding a kitchen so that people can receive the 3 meals a day there. But it is really ideally suited for this purpose. And we're really excited because we're having an open house coming up where the public can come and see the building and see our plans for it. It's October 26th from 5:30 to 7:30. People can just stop by, come and take a self-guided tour, as well as meet with Commissioner Garrido and the architect who's working on the project and the rescue mission and a lot of other service providers, and kind of really find out what we're going to be doing in the building. I should say that we're right now just in the permitting phase. So none of the remodeling has started to happen yet. It's just we're working through the Department of Community Development permitting process to submit all of the design work that needs to be done to do the remodeling for the building, both inside and outside, to get it ready to host people.
Thank you for that explanation. I've actually been in the building a few times. It's huge, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done to personalize it for living there. And I'm looking forward to watching the various phases of the reconstruction to make sure that, to actually just to watch it evolve is what I'm looking forward to. It's amazing to be able to change such a large building from one very specific purpose to a very necessary purpose.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm excited about with the project is that we are going to have it be what's called a co-sheltering shelter, which means that people will be able to bring their animals into the shelter as well. This is a really big barrier for a lot of people who are living outside who might have a dog or a cat, and they don't want to have to be parted from their furry family member in order to go into shelter. And so this shelter is being designed with a lot of consultation from the Kitsap Humane Society, the ASPCA, and some awesome local veterinarians who are really helping us provide a space for animals to be able to be cared for as well. So people will be able to come and stay in the shelter, and then their animals will also be sheltered there. It's a pretty unique project in that way, but there is sort of this growing movement across the country that this is really the ideal way to provide shelter for people, because those furry family members really are important to people's support network and important to their emotional well-being. So,
as you call them,
so.
furry family members, they are family
They
members,
are.
and people are reluctant, I have heard, to join a shelter that does not allow their furry family member to
Yeah,
come with
exactly.
them.
And we're excited that we are trying to line up some grants and looking for funding opportunities. And we're getting some great partnerships built with like area veterinarians who might be willing to come and kind of help with resources for the animals. And the Humane Society has been an amazing partner. So it's I'm really excited about that. I personally have 2 furry family members, and so I really want to make sure that other people can
Sure.
keep their animals with them.
And we've observed as people live outside that they do have those family members with them, and how important that psychological relationship is for the furry family member and for the human individual.
Yeah, and the shelter will also be able to accommodate, single people, couples. A lot of shelters are single gender shelters, and so couples aren't allowed. And so this one will take couples. It'll take families with children. We're designing a family area of the shelter, and then a backyard sort of fenced play area with a play structure for the kids. So it'll really feel like a little community of people. In our communities, right? We've got people from all ages, all family compositions. The shelter will kind of mirror that with having all different ages and experiences and family compositions.
Yes, and the shelter is a large building, but it does have extensive property behind it so
Yeah.
that there can be outdoor activities as well. Yeah.
I'll have a dog run area and separate, and then a kids area, and
Mhm.
then some just picnic tables and places for people to be able to enjoy being outside.
Are you excited about it?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about it. Yeah, I mean it's a huge project, and we couldn't do it without all the state and federal and local grants that we've
Mhm.
gotten for it. So it's 100% grant funded, and we've just had a lot of other great partnerships developed, and huge support from the commissioners to take on this project. So it's really a team effort.
Indeed, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So, how does staff promote the move to stable housing for individuals that we're encouraging to come inside?
I think, every person's story is different. Every person in the shelter has a really different experience, and they're in a different kind of situation. And so the shelter is really designed to promote people's self growth and overcoming their own individual barriers. There's no one size fits all plan for each person. It's really looking at how to make this a person centered approach with a lot of compassion and trying to identify what that person's strengths are that they can build on, and then help them break down the barriers that might be preventing them from moving into stable housing. And the goal is never for people to be in shelter. I mean, my dream would be that we don't have to have shelter, but we are where we are right now with the situation of people experiencing homelessness. And so the goal is for people to be in shelter for as short a time as possible, and then to get that help that they need to move into the next step of permanent housing that's appropriate for their needs.
Well, we're certainly living in unprecedented times.
Yeah.
And when we think about it, looking back to 1929 is reflective of what we see now. Um, I've read about it quite a bit, so it's shocking
Yeah.
that this pattern repeats itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of folks who are sort of just seeing people experiencing homelessness on their sidewalks um, don't understand really what the underlying causes of homelessness are. And, there's a lot of research been done on this because it's a problem that is evident in communities across the country. And, what we've discovered is that homelessness is most of the time caused by economic problem. It's people not having enough income to be able to afford the rent. We've seen rents increase, 10% a year or more in Kitsap County, and people's incomes aren't increasing nearly that fast. And so you have folks who have mental health issues or substance use disorders, and a lot of them are able to stay housed as long as they can afford their rent. But once that rent goes up and they can't afford it anymore, things just kind of spiral down. And so we're working also really hard to try to promote development of more housing that's affordable for low income households so that we can have fewer people getting displaced because of not being able to afford their rent.
So much to do,
Yes.
and yet we have a fabulous team that's working on this project. I also wonder, what can we tell neighbors about this? I've heard that there are some concerns, and and yet this will be a self-contained housing unit,
Yeah.
much like an apartment building.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to talk to quite a few neighbors
Well, thank
or
you.
community members who've expressed concerns through calls and emails. We do have a website for the project so people can kind of keep up with what's going on. But I guess what I would say to folks who have a lot of concerns about this shelter coming to their neighborhood is that we all want this to be a success. We want this to work. We want this to be a place where people can get a hand to get their life back on track and back into stable housing. We're going to do everything we can to make it be a success for the neighborhood, for the people living there, and for the community in general. We're probably not going to get it 100% perfect to start out, but we are open to conversation and discussion, and we're going to keep working at it until we have something that is really, really successful. So,
Well,
yeah.
and we're going to improve the situation as it currently is. And so
Yes.
each step will be necessary.
Yeah, I mean, right now we have a lot of people living outside,
Mhm.
and once people are able to move into a shelter, they're not homeless anymore. They're not outside anymore, and they've taken those first steps back to stable housing. So we're really hopeful for all the people who are going to be able to take advantage of staying in this new shelter project.
Kirsten, is there a website?
Yes, we have set up a website for the project specifically, which you can find a link on the screen. And at that website, you can find out we have a great frequently asked questions document. There's information about the open house that I mentioned, and then a bunch of other information about the project as it progresses. So hopefully people will check it out.
Thank you so much for visiting with me today about housing in Kitsap County. I really appreciate all of your energy and your information.
Thank you, Commissioner.